What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Real Talks podcast. My name is Mike Singletary.
And I am Frank Chen, and we are going to be your hosts. And what we're going to do is break down what it takes to live life on your terms through entrepreneurship, specifically real estate investing.
So we're going to hit it hard, the good, the bad, and the real, because that climb, as any entrepreneur knows, is never smooth. So let's get real. So Paul is obviously a copywriter. He's a copywriter, info publisher, a real estate investor, and a note investor. Formerly, he was a copywriter for Ryan Dossie and Ballpoint Marketing. And he's currently the founder of REIOmniDrip.com. You've been an investor since 2015. Tell me about your story, buddy.
Yeah, it's a long story, but I mean, back in 2015, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. You know, like everybody else, boring story, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and kind of dived in. I reread that book. I read the Cashflow Quadrant, by the way. And it's, this is like a tip for your audience, whoever's listening. Yeah. I think it's important to like reread things, books, newsletters, whatever. Reread them, pick them up at a different season in your life. Because, man, I picked up Cashflow Quadrant, which is simple. I've read it in the past, back in 2015 or whatever. Different seasons of your life, different things hit you differently, right? What you're in right now, you're gonna have different ideas. And reread Cashflow Quadrant and just like I hate to use a cliche, but it really did blow my mind. Even though I've already read it, I'm like, I realized the mistakes I'm making, the mistakes I've made, the mistakes I'm going to make in the future if I don't change.
What was the aha moment now?
Yeah, the aha moment now was I never realized that I'm continuously operating in a self-employment quadrant, right? So if anybody's familiar with the whole cash flow quadrant, I've been operating in a self-employment quadrant mindset and all for a long time. I mean, I've had quote businesses, and I called them businesses. They weren't really I was still self-employed, meaning I had to, I've never built them to be, hey, I can step out of it. And my future goals have always been, I never realized, and my future goals have always been revolved around me inside of those businesses, right? So, I mean, it's a simple concept. Everybody, everybody's, rolling their eyes. Oh yeah, we all hear about it in real estate and bigger pockets and all that. But when you actually, it's one thing to intellectually read it, know it, understand it. Another thing to like actually see your fault in it and see that you're making those mistakes that you intellectually know you shouldn't make, right?
So a lot of times we're so close to something that we cannot see our faults, our blind spot, or I don't know if you've read Principles of Ray Dalio, but he talks about that quite a bit on blind spots. And, you could easily, at the beginning stage of every business, you're always an operator, right? You got to wear a lot of hats, and then scaling to bring in other people in. That's a challenge for some, maybe others not. It sounds like that was a challenge, or that is a challenge for you.
And, reading that up, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but,
it's okay.
Yeah, but, that is, as I'm a copywriter and at heart, direct response copywriter, and, building also businesses with that. And I used to hear about business owners hiring out their copywriters when they're copywriters themselves. Patrick Riddle was on our event, and he's a great copywriter, but he hires that out for his business because we get too close to in our world, too close to our business, too close to our product, our service, our clients, too close to it. We can't see, we can't have an outside perspective of it. So, even today as a copywriter, I'm now hiring copywriters for my business when it's my superpower. I hate using that word, but it's my superpower.
Everybody has one.
Right. But I mean, it's realizing, okay, where do I have to put my place in right now? And so, I'm hiring copywriters to do things for me. It's always a hard shift going from, cause I haven't been an entrepreneur my whole life. I was a late entrepreneur, late bloomer. So only in, maybe 28, 29 years old, that's when I started getting into real estate. And, so before then I was a welder.
Really?
I was a pipeline welder. I was for utility, for gas utility. And, so I was a crew foreman. So I was blue collar. I'm in coveralls, we're jumping into holes, muddy holes. So that was my job for a long time. Excavator. I operated a backhoe, and so yeah, I mean, fun job and all, but and I got it for different reasons. But going let's tie it back into the cash flow quadrant thing. The two different brains of being a business owner and being an investor, two completely different brains from where I operated from. So back in 2015 when I started, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, dove into the rabbit holes of bigger pockets and all those forums at the time. REI Club, I think, was a popular. I mean, it's growing today, but back then it was also popular.
It was. I know Tim. I know Tim Randall.
Yeah. So so dove into those and didn't know a thing. And I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I did what everybody says to do, which is do direct. At the time was, send yellow letters. Yellow letters was popular back then. Send yellow letters and pull a list of 1,000 people per month. And I was in Southern California at the time. It's a very tough market in its own way. It's an expensive market, and some things for if I don't know what kind of audience you have, if you're brand new investors.
They're all over.
Some things I've learned today is really, a lot of people may ask, "Oh, does direct mail work? Does radio work?" And so it's just a matter of how much it's going to cost you. And direct mail is going to cost different. And I know this because I'm in the print world. I mean, I've worked as a copywriter for a print shop, so for a mail shop, and you hear about guys in the Midwest acquiring a deal through direct mail for only $2,500, right? $2,500, $3,000. They send some mail, they get a deal. Other places on the West Coast, on the East Coast, South Florida, those costs are 3-4 times as much. Maybe not 4 times, but twice as much, 3 times as much. But and it may sound like, oh, that's a deal breaker. But the upside to that is you should be getting the same equivalent of an ROI, right? If it's not, there's a problem in your whole operating. Yeah, it's not a marketing problem, it's a business problem at that point.
Right.
So with that, spent a lot of money back then in 2015, talking to a lot of sellers. Had CRMs. I had a CRM. I had drip sequences. And I think you brought me on here to talk about drip and follow up. So I'll tie into that.
Yeah.
A big problem I had back then is, I didn't understand anything about sales, marketing, etc. But my follow up, and everybody knows, follow up. Everybody hears the mantra, but nobody does it. Is the money's in the follow up. My follow up back then is I get these leads, and I would go to. I lived in a small house with kids. I mean, I still have kids. So I had to leave. And I was doing copywriting at the same time. I'll tie this into how I got into copywriting.
Yeah.
I'd go to a local Starbucks and sit in my parking lot. I'd have my list in my CRM of all the people I need to follow up with. And I'd go down the list, and I'd see, okay, here's Miss Seller. And my feelings would start kicking in. My rationalization would start kicking in, where I say, oh, Miss Seller, I talked to her last week. I don't want to bug her too much. I'm going to move on to the next person. Mr. John Doe here, I feel like he's not motivated. So I'm going to follow up him next week. My whole follow-up system was based off of feelings rather than like a systematic process, right? That whole, learned a lot from those mistakes of spending a lot of money. And that is a lesson of itself. It's kind of, when you're brand new, it's kind of dangerous to have a lot of money, because when you don't know what you're doing, right, you can just
you can go through it pretty quickly, man.
Right.
Yeah. You probably lost out on a bunch of deals because you weren't aggressive enough on your follow-up.
Absolutely. I was not aggressive. No, I wasn't. And that's something that I do today is I build follow-up for people. And something that I've learned from marketing, from copywriting, like copywriting 101 principles, is that we're not like, if you have a goal in mind, like meaning like take a house sale for acquisitions, for example, you have your seller that comes in, raises their hand, they want your cash offer, and then the end goal is obviously the deal. But in between, you have all these little sales you have to make, all these little hurdles you have to make before you get there. I think we think too much about, like, is this person a motivated seller or not? Is this person a seller? When in reality, what we should be asking ourselves is, or the goal should be, let's get them into an appointment first. Like that,
Right.
like stop trying to assume whether or not this person's, we can't control somebody saying yes or no. We can't control them doing a deal with us. That is out of our control. But the only thing we can control is what we say and what we ask. The very first, if they get into our system and they haven't made an appointment, that's our first ask. That's our first sale we have to make, is we need to get them on an appointment, right? And if they're not, that's your follow-up. That's your follow-up bucket for that person, is let's get them into an appointment, right? Let's get them into an offer. That's your next sale. If you give them a contract, but they haven't heard back, that's another sale. You have to touch base again, right? So you have all these little mini sales to make before you can actually get to the deal close. We think way too ahead of it. We should be thinking about all these little small nuances in our process.
I think you're absolutely right, because we're very heavy in telecommunications, so our follow up is actually calling or texting, right? During that sales process, and what you're saying is that you're trying to get these small incremental wins that moves them along the sales process.
Yep, it's just a funnel. That's really all it
Yeah.
is. It's and you have these different phases broken up. That's how I function. I mean, I've been in e-commerce. I've been in coaching. I've been into the processes that their sales process, marketing process, and it all looks the same. And real estate, it all looks the same. Meaning, you have these processes and phases in place, and we should be moving prospects along those phases.
Right. What have you found to be the most tactical and efficient way to move them from one phase to the next?
I have this whole like so I've broken this down to 3 different like strategies. So we don't like get too crazy here. I break it down 3 different strategies. So first is making your sequences or your drips, or if you want to, or buckets, whatever you want to call them, making them into, and what I mean by follow up, I mean somebody who's raised their hand and said, yes, I'd like, I'm interested in what you have to offer. Okay. I'm not talking about cold marketing right now. That's a whole nother animal, but something I don't specialize in. So I'm not going to pretend to say I know how to do cold marketing or lead generation. I've always been a conversion specialist for the last 5 years. First thing is I break down for real estate investors. We break down everything into event-based sequences or buckets or drips, whatever you want to call them. Okay. Event-based sequences. And I don't do situational stuff. I don't do, except for one occasion for closure. But I don't do situational stuff because, well, for one, it can turn into a big rat's nest of things. And 2, I'm not going to, like, if I have somebody who's a divorce lead, bankruptcy lead, I'm not going to bring that stuff up into a text message, right?
That's
Hey,
the worst thing you could do.
hey,
Yeah. First, they feel like they're being stalked. That's one,
right. Yeah.
right?
So,
And they're defensive right away, which is
right.
totally counterproductive, right? So,
Right. So the solutions that we bring to the table is going to be beneficial to somebody who's in divorce, somebody who's going through tax default, foreclosure, whatever it is. The solutions are going to be the same. What I do in the realm of segmenting, that's segmenting, right? If you're breaking into situations, that's segmenting. What I do segment is actually lead type based off of 3 things. Either it's vacant house, landlord, or owner occupant. So there's some of my sequences, like, so I have we set up a no appointment, no offer made sequence for investors. That one I do break up into 3 segments: vacant, owner occupant, and landlord. And the reason why I do that is because their problems are very different from each other, and so I can leverage that I can talk about the solutions specific to that problem, right? So a landlord, if our client buys with tenants in the house, I leverage that, and I bring up, hey, just a reminder, we can buy with your tenants in the house, right? That's the problem they're facing. That's the biggest problem they're facing. The biggest problem they're facing is it's hard to sell with a house with tenants in place, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to leverage that problem. Vacant.
So you're leading with a problem first, typically, right? On your sequences. And then you're kind of crafting it. Help me understand how you craft that.
So that's like the bird's eye view of the
Right.
sequences, right? And I haven't gotten into tactical, like, what do I say? So that is one of the 3 points. And I'll get to that.
Mm.
Let me just cover the
Sure.
bird's
Sorry, I
eye
get
view.
ahead of myself. Sometimes I get excited.
Oh yeah. So let's go. So this is the bird's eye view of it. And so the vacant house person, I can leverage the biggest problems, which is houses deteriorating. It's a liability. Squatters can't get a loan on it, et cetera. Those are the problems I can leverage. Now, the other component to that is the other component to this whole follow-up sequence, my whole follow-up philosophy is leveraging credibility and trust. So, or increasing trust with credibility. So what I mean by that is, a lot of investors, they just want to focus in on getting a response. That's like the whole. For me, I look at it much on a bigger branding effect of what follow up does, and it's that a goal of a specific message, email or text or voicemail or call. It might be just to get them to our website to view our testimonials. It might be for social proof. Like early on, I might be loading up on a sequence. I might be loading up some social proof. I might be loading up, getting them to our article or getting to our website to read an article about fixing the house because they expressed to us that they're going to be fixing the house instead. Right. That's one of my sequences. Actually, it's offer too low, fixing the house themselves. That's a specific sequence when they call us and let us know, hey, your offer's too low. I'm just going to fix the house myself. It's an objection sequence. We can plug them in that leverages that whole problem. They're going to fix the house themselves. So I can funnel over value via articles. I can funnel over value just via little tips in in the text message, all with the hopes that, hey, we're an authority figure. We're raising up credibility. We're raising up trust with them, right? So I'm not just thinking about trust, or I'm sorry, I'm not just thinking about response with a follow-up. I'm thinking about building having a branding effect with the whole thing, because if I send somebody a text, okay, it's we think narrowly, it's like getting a response, but that's only one touch. If I send a text, that's only one touch. But if I get them to click over, like I'm selling the click. That's a common marketing term, is sell the click. If my goal for this text message is to sell the click, and they run over to website, to article, to about page, whatever it is I'm trying to sell, that's now 2 touches. And if you're very advanced, and it's not very advanced, actually it's really simple to set up, but if you got retargeting in place with that, now you're setting up multiple touches after that. Now they're in this whole universe of ours. So it's much more than just like a one narrow streak of, hey, getting a response. To get response, you need to build credibility and trust first before you can actually get a response, right? So that's one of the components of like marketing in general, and what we do on the back end of things of conversion. If I'm setting up marketing campaigns for leads for other industries, I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to get people to move over to different channels. If they're social media, if it's starting from social media, I'm moving them over to email. I'm moving them over to articles. I might be moving them over to direct mail if they have that component as well. So,
there's always several rule of thought, I guess, thought processes when it comes to copy and sending out copy. Some think you should always have a call to action to every copy, directing them somewhere. Is that your belief as well, or do you just information and building brand trust and stuff like that?
No, it's a really good question, and I think that rules of thumb are good, but then there's also the context of things. So, I mean, as a direct response marketer and copywriter, there's this rule, a non-said rule that there's a call to action for everything. But when I designed these drips, probably only 80 to 90% of them have call to actions. So there are some that are just nurture. It's really, there's only a few of them, but they are out there. I have some that are, this is more tactical on the copy side of things, but I have some typo correction messages as well. So that is like, so these are automated, right? I'm not 100% automation guy, by the way. Like none of these sequences are 100% automated. I still believe in a human component, in the manual component in all these. They're automated in the sense that, you know, if you have a CRM capability to do it, they're sending out messages, they're sending out text messages and emails. But there is a message I send out in a lot of the sequences where I deliberately put like a really bad typo into the message. And then right after that, it'll send a correction, you know, like little star, you know, hey, I'm sorry, I meant this. That's really just meant to show that it's a personal
person.
person
Right.
thumbing this right now. I mean, it's a tactic. Is the tactic going to work for everybody? Not everybody, but for the majority of people, it's going to send a sense of, hey, there's actually an actual person behind all these marketing messages, right? So not everything has a call to action. Some are just nurture. Some are just like these tactics of a typo message. So it just depends on the context of what we're talking about, what sequence it is.
What is the most common mistakes that you see people making when they're writing their own copy for their website or emails or whatever the case is?
The biggest, I think a big mistake I see is people writing too professionally. And so they're not writing, you know, this is like copy 101, and it's write like you talk. You hear this quite a bit from like the old school guys like Gary Halbert. You know, we talked about Eugene Schwartz, breakthrough advertising. It's like a common thing is write like you talk, because you're trying to be at their level. You're not trying to write like they're getting a letter from the government, or they're getting a letter from the HR department, right? So yeah, that's something that I try to utilize as much as I can for our drip sequences for our investors. And that's a mistake I see commonly is people emailing back, and it just sounds like, you're talking to a lawyer. It's like what's that?
It's not authentic.
Right. It's not authentic. It's too
Right.
mechanical, using words they don't use in
Yeah.
regular language. Right. So.
And on top of it, also meeting them where they are in the journey too, right? That's another big one when it comes to copy. And I think that's kind of, you touch upon that, because some people just goes way beyond and way ahead. I know I've done that plenty of times where I feel as if they are here, but they're really here, right? And I'm not nurturing through that process.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, that's a principle I utilize in follow up. But before I get into that, yeah, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's in a simple email exchange. Yeah, we tend to say a little too much when we're not there yet, right? Or we're not even part. Like if you're having a negotiation with somebody through email, you have to think about what's the next. And this is a copy principle as well. If you're having a communication or a call with somebody, and you end the call, and it's like, well, what happens next? With every call that has like a purpose, whether it be a JV call with somebody, whether it be partnership, whatever it is, that even if it's a friendship call, right? Like what's going to be the next thing? If it's simply friends, it's like, well, if we're going to connect again, let's connect again in a month. Let's set that on the calendar. If this is a partnership and we have an idea, I was just on a call earlier about an idea, and it was an idea thrown around. We could throw ideas all day long, but it's like, okay, what's the next thing? Is this going to be a real thing? And the call to action, the next thing was going to be, well, how about we follow up with this in 2 weeks? We sit on this idea and see if it's for us, right? What's going to be the instructions next? And that's always been like copy 101 type of technique, is making sure you have clear instructions on what the person's supposed to do next, right? So even in follow up, I try to, in all of them, I try to keep text messages a little shorter than usual, even so that I try to cram the content together.
It's nothing worse than a long text.
Right. So I try to cut words out that don't need to be there. It might not sound, it's not grammarly it's not proper, right? But it doesn't matter. It reads the same way. You're reading it, it's like, well, you can cut out this word "and" here, and you can cut out this word "with," and I'm just
throwing in abbreviations, and you're throwing in a little bit of slang as well.
Absolutely. I can throw out the comma. I can throw out the punctuation. I can do all that to make it look real. Like when we text, we don't really I know that there's autocorrects and stuff like that, but with Android, sometimes you don't have the autocorrect. So I throw out the punctuation sometimes. Makes it look a little more real and legit, you know?
How about
So
emojis and stuff? Do you include those or no?
I don't include it with us just because every CRM is different. Every
Yeah.
CRM doesn't have the capability for it. You know, there's data out there. You're going to hear data from emojis are giving me X%, and other people saying differently. So with data like that, context is important. So it's,
Sure.
you know, who are they sending to? What's the product they're selling? What's the service they're selling? I mean, it's hard. Like for me, it's hard to believe that just putting a simple emoji is going to increase your response. Like as a copywriter, like what's the selling mechanism there that actually increases the response? But I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's a big, huge like turning point for us to add it in. It's just more of a hassle for us because then we have to work with the CRMs to figure, because we install into every CRM, like whatever client we have and whatever CRM they have, we install it into their CRM. And
So
yeah,
you do a complete A to Z integration, follow-up sequence integration. Is that
yeah,
correct? Okay.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we go from like, so when a client orders, they will go through like a kind of a questionnaire where we ask them some specific business process questions, like if they're 100% virtual, if they're local, if they buy with tenants in the house, if they, all these little minutia that have to do with the copy on the back end, so we can make sure we have the right messages for them. We get all their URLs, we get their social media if they have social media, we get their testimonials. We dig through their best testimonials and reviews, we plug that into emails, and then we install it for them inside of their CRM so it's ready to go. And we give them instructions on exactly how to use this. So we're delivering the process of the whole mechanism of follow-up. It's not just here's your drip, you know, and I think that's a big problem with having just a drip. Like, so I'll dive into some people's accounts where they have maybe one drip and it's for like no response. All right. So going back to what we said earlier, having a call to action and all that. Well, if I have one drip that's just for people who haven't
Just explain
responded.
what a drip is, because most people are going to know, but just
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So like on your CRM, a lot of CRMs already have some in place, but they might have a drip, which means that like it sends out automated text messages, emails, tasks,
Right.
notifications. Also, so like if you, how it's usually utilized is, you know, oh, a seller has ghosted us. Let's toss them in, or, you know, it's just a click of a button. Usually, let's toss them into our no response drip sequence or work. There's a bunch of different names. Drip is just one of them, but workflow,
Yeah.
automation, whatever it is, buckets. Um, the problem with having just a no response drip sequence is that you have people that haven't received an offer yet. You have people that haven't been on an appointment yet that received an offer but said no. People that have ghosts. So going back to like that call to action, it's like, well, where are they at in the process? Like, how am I supposed to be targeted on what I need to ask next if it's just a whole mix of people in that one drip, right? That's why I have no appointment, no offer sequence, because I know, okay, well, we haven't made an offer yet. So that's my first sale I have to make is I got to get them over at least to try our offer. In order to try our offer, they have to get on an appointment with us. Right. So that's, you know, so when they're in that sequence, we know that the targeted message is, hey, at least try our offer. So yeah, I mean, that
Super important. I mean, I don't know how, I guess especially the new people, they don't quite understand because you're just trying to get low hanging fruit. People that are just going to raise their hand right away. And they just just like you said, put in these no response drip sequences. But to really think it out and draw it out and write it out, all that stuff. I mean, it takes unbelievable amount of time and talent. It takes talent, right? So you're really solving a pretty big problem here.
yeah, new investors. Yeah, a lot of people are focused on the lead gen, and yeah, that's true to a point. But then my problem was that it wasn't lead gen because I spent a lot of money on direct mail when I first started out. My problem was the conversion on the back end. That's where like I went to the rabbit hole of copy. I realized I had a problem. So I just stumbled across different books. And then I on accident, I stumbled across being a copywriter for Investor Care at that time. Just by accident. It was sure, like I wasn't really trying. They sent out an email to their whole member. I was a Carrot member, and I
Right.
said, sure, what the heck not? And tried it out and actually liked it and learned more and more and expanded on it. Got some freelance clients here and there. Now copywriting is my full time. Plus with OmniDrip plus copywriting is my active income. I have passive income from notes that I've generated from flipping land and mobile. Like we kind of skipped my whole story,
We
story of
skipped a couple of things because I think I just rushed into your product because I'm so interested in it.
yeah. I'll try to, because I know we only have an hour, so I'll try to keep it short. But
Yeah, definitely.
Uh, yeah, at the time that I was struggling, I also became a copywriter professionally, getting paid to doing stuff for clients. I didn't know what I was really doing at the time. Apology for people who were my clients back in 2016, but I was, you learn by doing. So I'm just diving into that rabbit hole of it. But at the same time, I'm also juggling. I was doing Lonnie deals at that time because it
Dude,
was
I
low.
love land. By the way, I love land.
You love it, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah. So mobile homes was kind of my first pivot though, because it was low
Yeah.
hanging fruit, and I was doing Lonnie deals, which I don't know if anybody's familiar with Lonnie deals. It's where you find, and it's not technically real estate, but I mean at the end of the day, it gives you cash flow. It's where you find these mobile home parks where you don't own the land, you just own the trailer,
Okay.
and
And
you
then
buy.
you lease on the land.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
buy the trailer and then you sell it on a note. You sell it on owner
Hmm.
finance, and so you no longer become the owner of that trailer. You're the lien holder now.
Yeah.
So I acquired some notes through there, and those are it was the reason why I pivoted there is, for one, I was looking for cash flow, and two, it was just low hanging fruit. Nobody was diving into it because, hey, it's mobile homes. It's not,
Yeah. Well, they are
people.
now.
Well, yeah, now it's getting popular, right?
Yeah.
So, but people were afraid of it. It's like, oh, it's not single family. Nobody's doing this, so I'm not going to do it. Well, I, I dove into it. I was like, and it worked the first time. Well, not the first time. I lost money a couple times, but not because it's mobile homes. I lost money because of not comping things right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where you lose the money. Usually, estimation, not estimating it right, not analyzing it right. It wasn't clicking that well for me. I wasn't enjoying it. I hated going out and viewing a project. I mean, there's ways around it. There's always you can.
No, I feel the same with you. I mean, I just pivoted to completely land about
Okay.
2 months ago, and it's just because we bought a lot of houses, but I was the same. I just never enjoyed the process. You know what I mean? Dealing with contractors and all this other stuff, and then stumbling upon land is so much easier as far as like the transactions and the process of it. So I could talk about that for hours, but that's not what's important.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do like to do on this show is that it's called Real Talks, and we have a segment called Shitstorm. Pardon the French. But what it really is that I do believe in the entrepreneur's hero's journey, in that, every one of us had to jump off a cliff and kind of built the wings on the way down. And we have every single person I've known that ever done anything has messed up dramatically in one way or another. And somehow either, found their greatest lesson in it. What would that story be for you?
Um, I don't think I had like dramatic shitstorm type of story where, like, I'm going bankrupt, I'm living in a car, or anything like
Right.
that.
Well, it could be a series of them, man. Right.
Right. I guess the only thing is just the losing money part, right? So, you know, I've I've lost money in a couple ways. One, like I've explained to you how I put a lot of money in direct mail, not knowing what the hell I'm doing, and not having the process in place, and kind of
Yeah.
just jumping into something. If I were to look back, I would say that I would have rather spent that money. It was, and I'm going to say it was $20,000-$30,000 that spent in direct mail with no results in my first 6-8 months. All right. Um, I would say I would rather spend that money on a coach, and I'm not a coach at all. It's like this might sound like it's biased. So I'm not a coach by any means, but I do believe in it. That it
Mhm.
is a quick way to to really cut that learning curve. It is gonna. It's for people who are brand new. It's I think 80% of entrepreneurship is mindset. And that sounds really woo woo. And it sounds like you probably hear it on YouTube all
Oh,
the time,
100%.
but it's not the next ninja tactic. It's not the
Right.
next ninja trick. It's really not. Um, you can be an entrepreneur and have great success opening up a laundromat, right? So it's not the product or the service or the thing. But I dove out of it because I just didn't really I didn't enjoy the rehab process, right? So it's not the product or the service or the thing. Um,
It's
it,
grit and tenacity. More
yeah,
times than not.
right. It's your emotional intelligence. It's your
Mhm.
interpersonal intelligence, meaning yourself. What are you telling yourself at the end? You could have two of the same characters, and one of them has this self talk of stopping before. Yeah, I mean, you hear this stuff all the time on YouTube, but after being through it, doing the mud, having failing products, having failing services, shifting from one industry to the next. I think that's it right there. It's more about it's really about the mentality that you have for yourself. So for new investors, I would say having somebody there that can guide you, because you don't know what to expect, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of people that start, like I see this when I'm managing emails for a direct mail shop, right? So I manage their email marketing. I see the emails come through, and I see people who want to order, and they might be like in South Florida, and they're like, I want to order 1,000 mail pieces. And they do that, they go through that, and then they blame the direct mail company for not having any deals. When they're what you think you should do, like as for success in whatever field you're doing, you got to multiply that by 3, 4, 5 times the the
Possibly
the
even 10.
the effort that it really takes.
Yeah.
And that sounds discouraging for some, because they might, you might go knock on the door, because doing something new is a lot of hard work. So you decide, okay, I'm going to go door knock. And I did door knocking for foreclosures for a long time, and probate. And, it's like, well, I think I'll go door knock 5 doors this weekend. When in reality, it takes like hundreds of doors.
Yeah.
So, you can go ahead and door knock 5 doors a week, but understand you're not going to really see results until months later. Um,
I
so
think you nailed it, though. I think that people underestimate the amount of effort it takes to be successful. The amount of effort your marketing campaign takes to be successful. Like sending 1,000 mail pieces is really not going to do anything, right? I mean, we used to send 25,000 out a month. I know that sounds small to some and large to others, but it's a volume game, and more importantly, it's a consistency game. Right. And I think that's where people really, really mess up. They underestimate the effort. If they don't have the money, they got to put up 10 times the effort, or the money piece where, because you buy houses with no money down, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to go into this without any cash. And I think that you nailed it too. If you did
it is,
have a little bit of cash, partner with somebody, or you have a
right.
deal, partner with somebody.
Absolutely. Or find ways to generate money. So like
Yeah.
I'm doing this right now. I have another business venture. And it's a blog I've started with a partner of mine. And I don't want to operate in it. I don't want to do the writing. So I'm trying to figure out ways. And that's where it's actually a beneficial when you don't have money, because
Mhm.
then you have to manufacture, because money is just it's just a
The
resource, right?
tool.
It's just a tool. Like, so swap out money with some other thing you can barter, your time, your skill set, whatever it is, whatever you have. There's a great book. It's higher level, and you have to like dig. It's not like this is how to do XYZ, but it's by Jay Abraham. It's getting everything you want out of everything you have, I think it is. But if you type in Jay Abraham, you're going to see a title, everything you want out of everything you have, or something like that.
It's
But
awesome.
basically manufacturing these things out of thin air. It's not a money problem. It's if you're brand new in this business, you have nothing at all, you have no money. You need to start building up resources other than your money. For one, your skill sets and your knowledge set, and then two, the people around you, right? I mean, that sounds like another cliche, and I hate using it because everybody talks about it in
Because they're tried and true. I
Right.
mean, you
Your
know,
network is your net worth, right? All
I don't
those.
believe that one as much. That's one that I don't know if I 100% believe. I mean, I do believe in a certain aspect that who you hang out with, eventually that's the level that you're right.
Well,
So I do believe that. I think that's the premise of it to a certain degree.
I'm referring. When I think of it, I think about opportunities. So just
Yeah.
from like a lot of times, there's there's a great book, Psycho Cybernetics. If anybody has
I
trouble,
love that book.
yeah. So he talks
Yeah.
about Maxwell Maltz. He talks about how your goal. You have your goal that's 10 years from now, whatever it is. It's never a straight line. And a missile, and if you think about a missile is never a straight line either. A missile veers off and goes in, and then you either have the software in place or you have somebody behind it that's veering it back into course. And I could think about like going back 2015 to today. I would never think I got to this point in my life, because you think you have your plan and you think it's a straight line. It's never a straight line. You have all these different opportunities that veer you off course. And it's not in a bad way. It's actually probably the course you should be going. But when I say network, net worth, whatever that I hate using those cliches, but how I see it is the opportunities that open up for you, right? And you just never know what person. Just today, I had a opportunity that opened up for me, just from asking a question to somebody that I was on another webinar with. He hosted a webinar with me, got on the phone afterwards, and I just asked a question about feedback for my product, for my service. And he's a guy I respect and a guy I was friends with for a long time. And then it opened up an opportunity for a joint venture that I would never have happened if I didn't reach out to him and ask to get on his webinar, and two, I didn't ask about my feedback for this, right? So yeah, I mean it's all about the opportunities that come your way. So
I agree, my friend. I mean, awesome talk. So, Paul, how can they find you?
yeah, I mean, if anybody's interested in follow-up, improving their follow-up, they can just go to REIOmniDrip.com, OmniDrip, and just sign up there. They'll get some samples, demo of my whole service, what I opt, like how we implement follow-up. You'll get that whole demo in there, some samples in there, and then just follow me in my email newsletter. So
That's awesome. I think I'm signing up. I don't know if I already signed up, but I will sign up for sure, man, because we're going to talk about that off camera, where I look forward to being your client. So I appreciate you coming on, man. That was awesome. And peace out, man.
Thanks for having me on. I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate you, brother. All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.
All right, bye. So that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you received value from this episode. If so, please share this podcast with your friends so we can help more people just like you. Also, hook up with us on Facebook, IG, and YouTube at Real Talks. That's REIL Talks. So until next time, keep it cool and keep it real.